am joined here today with Daniel Bluman and our special guest, Daniel's son, Avi. I'm very pleased that you are here with us too. It was a real surprise for me. For a bit of context, we got together because one of my clients, who also happened to be one of your previous students, she mentioned, listen, Annette, you really have to sit down with Daniel because he has such an interesting story to tell, especially around his mental game. I would love to see that one inside the mind. So I said, great, you got me very curious. And here we are, a few weeks later in Wellington at your beautiful place with your son. Let's start with, you've been to 3 World Equestrian Games. You've been through 3 Olympic Games and Pan American Games. I think it's safe to say you're a championship pro. But I would like to start with a quote that I read online from you. Every horse, every day, you learn something new. The horses will teach you everything. And the moment you think you know everything is the moment you know nothing.
Yeah.
I love that quote.
Thank
And
you.
I would love to know, how did that come about?
Well, thank you very much first for being here and having the conversation. I think it's always important for people, and that's why I brought Avi, that he's young and starting to learn everything about the mental game, to attend our chat and even get to listen to some questions and answer some questions. And going back to the quote, yeah, I mean, in my personal experience, having had the opportunity to work with horses and work with them every day has been a true blessing. From a young age, maybe a little bit younger than what Avi was, I started to realize that I felt a lot of different things in my body, and at that point I didn't even know they were coming from my mind, but I was starting to feel a lot of things in my body when I was competing or when I was getting close to competition times and stuff, and I struggled with it a lot. And back in those days, you didn't have the tools that we have today. I mean, I'm not old, but I mean, we're talking about a solid 26, 27 years ago. The sports psychology and mental training wasn't really a thing. And horses actually were, at that point, really my therapy. The love of working with them every day, the work, the love and appreciation for them as animals is really what got me going, kept me going, really, because the feelings I was having were so strong that I wasn't sure I was going to be able to continue. It was just really something that was upsetting my life, and it's the horses and that interaction with them every day that has taught me so much.
Okay, that's really impactful. So tell us more about, those feelings, and was that just at the shows? Was that at home as well? Was that really around the pressure of competing? And describe to us what that felt like, if you can.
Yeah, it was very emotion dependent,
right?
Which was the most interesting thing for me. Obviously, the first signs of it was when I felt fear. When I was riding and I was young, and sometimes, we didn't have ponies there, it was horses. So they were such strong animals, and I felt like I really was totally dependent on what the horse wanted to do, because there was not much I could do when things were going the wrong way. I didn't have the strength. So when I started to feel fear, sometimes fear would spiral out of control and become a full-blown experience where I would start crying and sweating, and all these things were happening to my body, and I really wasn't sure what to do. So that was one, but that was kind of easy to explain, at least, because I was feeling fear, right? It started to get more complicated when I started to also have some of those reactions when I was getting anxious before competition. I just wanted to perform. I wanted to have good rounds and whatnot. And then my body had these reactions that made me conscious of the fact that something was happening to my body, and that triggered everything to down spiral for same idea, because I was being caught off guard, didn't know what was happening to me. And so that was the second wave of emotions, or strong emotions, that I was losing control of. And then lastly, it happened also when I had success, which then it really didn't make any sense to me. Like, why after the competition, when the prize giving ceremony was happening and all this kind of stuff, I was feeling such strong things. I wanted to throw out, to puke. I was really feeling sick. So yeah, I mean, that's sort of how everything began. And to be honest, the natural thing would have been to quit, right? Because that was the easy thing. And I'm not going to tell you I didn't think about it. Thought about it a lot, for many years. But I enjoyed so much riding, and I enjoyed so much the life around the horses, that I just kept going. I don't know why I never stopped. I guess that's why I never stopped.
Right.
But the natural thing to do with everything that was happening was probably to stop. Like I said, back then we didn't have the tools, so the feeling was just so terrible that I still wonder sometimes why I just didn't stop, which actually would have not helped at the end, because I would have ended up feeling the same feelings doing some other activity in my life. So it's not like if I stopped doing it, I was never going to feel that again. I was going to end up feeling it anyways.
Yeah.
But obviously I didn't know that at the time.
Yeah, exactly. So what I hear you say is, on the one hand, the horses were your therapy. You loved just being with the horses and riding them, and at the same time competing, and the fear as well, like, was very intense. I even heard that you would have some panic attacks even. What was that for your mind? Not just in the moment. You described like it was really intense, and it sounds like you didn't understand why. Was that something that was constantly on your mind? Like, why am I feeling this way?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, at the beginning, it was sporadic,
Right.
so it wasn't happening all the time. I was trying to comprehend what was happening, but it was normally happening when I felt fear, which is normal, right? I mean, I'm riding a big horse, and so that was not so strange for me. I guess I didn't get stuck in the moment. I
Right.
would feel it, I would live through it, and then I would continue.
Right.
But then one time when I was around 7 years old, we were in competition weekend, so just regular Saturday, Sunday competition. I woke up that Sunday morning, and when I went to have breakfast, my mom put breakfast on the table, and full-blown panic attacks, like hyperventilating. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't feel hungry. I couldn't eat it. I tried and I just couldn't. It wouldn't. It was just like, it was like I never felt something like that before. So then I, ran to the bathroom. I'm really like in a full panic mode, at that time. So the breathing, the sweating, all that stuff. And then it was really bad. And then I fell asleep, like it was like too much, and then body shut down completely. But still, I woke up an hour later or something, and got dressed and went to the horse show. Like that was the way it worked. And I remember, okay, I get there, whatever, I'm dressed, and we're waiting for the course to open so we can walk. And I had another panic attack. So I'm just like sitting down, waiting for it, and then they call us to walk the ring. I'm like again in a full-blown panic attack, so I don't walk the course. Okay, now time to warm up the horse, so I'm supposed to warm up the horse, but I feel so weak, and I'm, I call my cousin, my older cousin. He goes, warms up the horse. So you can see how the mentality was. At no point withdrawing was even an option. It was just, okay, how are we going to cope with this? And then my cousin warms up the horse. They put me on the horse in the ingate. I go, I compete, I do what I have to do. And then I get off, and that's it. And it was not that we had to compete because our family was competitive in the horses, because we were first generation in horses, in equestrian sports. But I guess it was so misunderstood, and I wasn't sick, that we knew of, like nobody really know. But when they asked me, can you ride? I said, yeah, I can ride. When they asked me, can you ride in the ring? Yeah, I can ride in the ring. So anyways, I ended up riding. And that was the first time. That was the first time, and then after that, it started to become a little bit of of a common situation in horse shows.
Right.
You know, like it kept happening and kept happening and kept happening, and you can fast forward as many years as you want, and it kept happening. You know, so.
How old were you that what you just described, this starting in the kitchen? How old were you there?
I was 7.
Right.
I was 7,
Okay.
yeah, when that happened. At the time, because we didn't know what it was, you know, we assumed that it was just fear or something. But then it started to happen during the week when we were not even in competition, when there was no real reason why.
Right.
Now, much later, now I understand, you know, about triggers and, you know, about the thoughts and, you know, everything else. So what ended up happening after a few episodes is that I started to be afraid of myself.
Yeah.
So I would tell my mom, I'm afraid, and she would say, afraid of what? And I said, afraid of feeling afraid.
Okay.
Because my mom always tells me, that's what I said. I was afraid of feeling afraid.
Yes.
And okay, you know, I was taken to some doctors to check my heart, you know, and see that everything was okay with my heart and all that. It had nothing to do. It was in the brain, which obviously at the time, either my parents didn't know or they didn't want to accept.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
at such young age, I had started with these situations. But yeah, that was the battle, you know, and it's been a battle ever since. Obviously, the more I learned and, you know, the more I started to work with professionals, the easier it got. And now I can tell the story and live like a completely perfect life, normal life, and enjoy the sport.
What was the tipping point for you? I mean, you know, you've done very well. You are a 5-star level rider, been to all these championships. What changed? What happened? How did you deal with this?
Well, at the beginning, I dealt by myself, you know, just trying to just go on with it. When I was about 13 or 14, I spoke the first time to a psychologist and a psychiatrist about it. So I was able to understand that I actually had a condition, you know, and that what I was happening wasn't because I was too weak or because my brain was weak or because I needed to learn how to think. You know, yes, I needed to learn how to think, but I needed help. You know, like I had a situation with the release of the serotonin. I don't know how you say it exactly in English, but you know, I understood what it was. I got a little bit of help and mental coaching, and that already made the situation so much better. And then I would say that actually after the Olympic Games, about 2013 or 2014, I had an episode before a Grand Prix. That was pretty strong. Obviously, nobody could notice. I was living it internally completely. And then I realized that it was the time to start speaking to a proper, you know, like sports psychologist and making my mental training or my mental coaching part of my routine. You know, like I train my body, I need to train my brain, and you never stop training your brain or training your body. And then since then, you know, it was game on. You know, I have it, I live with it. I live, every time I compete, I know it's there, and I embrace it. It makes me a better competitor. So now it's, instead of being a weapon against me, it's sort of a weapon that works for me.
Oh, nice.
So that obviously years later and a lot of training.
For sure. Well, can you tell us a bit more about that training specifically? How have you turned it around to really make it your strong suit now?
Well, you know, I think that you guys know what you're talking about, you know, in your field, and you've studied it, and you know, as unique as we think we are actually not quite as unique. You know, all humans, in many ways, are alike, and I was given the tools. You know, I was given the tools to deal with my feelings and with my emotions and with my thoughts, and I continue. Like I said, it's a never-ending. You know, you're always a work in progress. You might think you have it, and then you start getting weak for some reasons. You have to constantly be working on it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, once I started to understand everything that was happening to me and what I was thinking and how to use it for my advantage and what thoughts were good to have, what thoughts were not good to have, and, you know, breathing techniques and all that other stuff, then I learned to live with it. Doesn't mean I don't feel it. I feel it. I feel it just as intense as I felt it when I was 7 years old. It's just that it never down spirals. You know, it's just a feeling that is there, and it's not a trigger for a panic attack anymore.
Yeah. I completely understand that, and it's interesting because probably the question I got asked the most is, how do I get rid of my nerves? right? And Avi, you just asked me the same thing, right? Like, how can I not feel that? And my answer is always, and it didn't used to be, by the way, but it is, I've learned over time that the more we try and get rid of the nerves, the more we still focus on them, right? And it's actually just taking them along and refocusing on what you were doing in that moment anyway. How would you view that?
Well, I've actually had that discussion with Abby a few times, because Abby has strong emotions and strong feelings, and when he's riding or competing or doing everything, he's very, very, very strong with his emotions. With the winning and the losing, and and feeling fear or defeat or all that kind of stuff. And what I always say to him is that we have to just do what we're doing. Focus on the task, focus on what we're supposed to do. And when we start getting all these feelings, just let them sit there, like don't lose your focus in what you're doing to focus yourself in what you're actually feeling.
Yeah.
It's hard. Obviously, it's very hard because it's intense and it's hard to understand, and you feeling all these emotions. But eventually, it just becomes part of the routine.
Yeah.
Like for me, actually, it would be weird if I'm getting ready for a competition if I didn't feel it. That would actually throw me off. Like, why am I not feeling what I've been feeling for all these years? That would actually be something that for me would be weird. At this point, it's there, and in big days, in big competition, it starts in the moment I open my eyes that morning when I wake up. It's like my body knows. It's like my mind knows. And I know that I'm going to have to put an effort that day, that I'm not going to be like I'm a normal Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, So that day is a day where my body reacts in a different way, my mind works in a different way, my diet is in a different way, my whole routine is a different routine. And I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I'm not looking forward to it. Sometimes I'm really not looking forward to it. But it's part of it, and I know that it brings my game higher. So what I've learned through the years is just to compete the right amount, not compete more, give my brain a rest, give my situation a rest, and pick times of the year where I just want to be a normal person and not a competitive athlete.
Oh wow, that's really helpful. Can you explain to people watching, on those hard days, it's uncomfortable. It's going to be uncomfortable. It sounds like you've learned to be comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But what do you do with that? You say everything changes. So do you do something with that? Do you do some breathing, visualization, or is that part of your routine regardless of how you feel?
Yeah, I have a routine that I always stick to, like just how I eat, what I eat, doing exercise before the competition. And then one of my things that has worked really well for the last few years, I try to not be in the zone for so long, so I try to get in the zone about 3 hours out or 2 hours out. And then I go through my routine and I ride my horse and I walk the course and I do everything I do. But during that time, I'm very quiet, I'm very in my thing. People that know me understand that that's just how it is. And I feel all of those emotions, but it's like I said, I'm used to it. It's part of the routine. Actually, for me, the zone part is actually easy. The more difficult part for me is before I get in the zone, so when the class goes late, I have all day, and I'll get in the zone 3 hours out, but the rest of the day is not a normal day either. I have to be preparing myself for being in the zone, for, again, what I eat, the amount of sleep I get, like I've learned what works best and what doesn't, so I just try to always prepare myself the best as I can.
Got it.
Nelly.
Is there any of that, Avi, that you use as well?
Any of what that I use?
What your dad just described, thinking about what works for you, what doesn't work for you. Do you think about that?
Yeah.
Do you? What have you learned so far?
I've learned that some stuff that work cannot work sometimes.
Oh, that's a good lesson. Very good point. It doesn't always work, does it?
Yeah.
So what I hear you say is every time you have to figure it out again. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's part of the challenge, isn't it? Yeah. Sounds like you're doing already a very good job.
What do you do when you feel fear?
Um, I ignore my fear and I just keep doing the stuff that I want to do.
That's
Nice.
right. But it's not always easy.
Yeah.
But already such an important lesson.
Yeah.
You know what? When things go easy when we're young, it might feel comfortable, but then we never learn to deal with the uncomfortable. And whatever it is that we want to achieve in life, if we want to be very, very good at it, it will get uncomfortable.
It's true.
Yeah, and I think it's important. Abby and I have that conversation a lot. You don't have to do. If you do things for the right reasons, then going through the uncomfortable and going through those moments is not a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing it for the wrong reasons and all you want is to compete and win and everything is based on that result, I mean, I guess for some people, what for me would have never worked. Because my real passion is the day-to-day with the horses, the working with the horses, the improving the horses, then creating those strong relationships with the horses. That really is what drives me.
Okay.
And of course, as part of that comes competing. But competing is fun, but for me it's not the most fun. If I didn't have the rest of it, I probably wouldn't compete at all, because it takes a mental toll, an emotional toll. And if it wasn't for as meaningful as it is what we're doing, then I'm not sure I would do it. But when you're doing it for the right reasons and you love the horses and you enjoy, then face those uncomfortable moments and keep going.
You just mentioned that you were ashamed of feeling all those feelings.
Yeah, of course. You don't want to be seen. You don't want to be looked at when that happens, and you feel, first of all, what you're feeling, and second of all, you don't know how your physical appearance looks. When you're feeling like that, and again, I used to think I was very unique, but the more I read, the more I realized that was totally normal, and the people that felt the way I felt normally look to hide. They want to go to bathrooms where they cannot be seen, or they go to a corner where they cannot be seen. They want to find a place where they can cope with themselves without having people look at them. And I still think, and I definitely thought back then, that it is a big disadvantage. Sometimes when you feel such intense emotions. I know the people I compete against very well, and they're different personalities, and I know some feel like I do, some feel more, some feel less, and some feel way less, and I do think that the cooler you are, I guess the easier it is to cope with the competition. But I also know now that it doesn't mean that the people that feel like I feel, or the athletes that feel like I feel, have a disadvantage, because we don't have a disadvantage. At the end of the day, everything that we feel can be turned the other way and become an advantage. It's just hard. It's harder work to do, and obviously when you look around and you're feeling like that and you don't see anyone or not many people feeling like that, you feel odd. So.
Yeah. Well, I do think that it's really, really helpful for people watching to hear that, because I know there are many people out there that feel exactly the same, and knowing that there are riders at the top that feel exactly like that. And in fact, almost everybody that I've spoken to on camera or for Winning Habits, the book, they've mentioned they feel nerves before going in. And it's really made me realize how actually normal it is. It just, indeed, the way you described it is very accurate. It just varies in intensity, doesn't it? And it sounds like you've really experienced it very intensely. And I think that it's only a disadvantage if you allow it to be.
Yeah.
If you are very cool, if you have, all the right circumstances, that too can be a disadvantage if you don't know how to cope with all that pressure. It's like you have everything there for you, now go and do it. And some people really struggle with that. I think no matter what you experience, and no matter what you're like and what your mental game is like, whatever you want to pursue and want to do it well, you are going to face discomfort.
Yeah, you know, and actually going back to that, it's something I now discuss to people that are close to me. When we have spoken about like major classes or championships or whatever, where the pressure is really on, and the question was, how did you cope with it? And I said, you know what? The reason I cope with it is because I've been coping with it since I was 7 years old. So I don't feel any different. You know, for me to feel what I feel in a normal Saturday night or Sunday Grand Prix is no different than what I would feel in the Olympic Games or what I would feel in any competition when I have to go last in the jump off. And, you know, of course, when you think about it, it seems like it's a lot of pressure and you should be feeling things. And I am. But what I'm feeling is no different than what I've been feeling since I was 7. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, we all deal with different things. The ones that are like me deal with this, and then we get used to it and we perform. And it's uncomfortable, and we have to face uncomfortable situations very often from a young age. But then some of the riders that are really cool get to these super high pressure moments, and they don't know what to do because they're not used to competing or riding with this type of feeling. So then which one do you prefer? You know, I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to say I prefer one over the other, but what I'm saying is we all have our thing. You know, the ones that don't ever feel it and then feel it, they panic and they can't perform. And then the ones like me that feel it all the time, we never panic, but we have to feel uncomfortable very often. I mean, it is what it is. You know, I just think it's fascinating, and I think that the fact that my situation was combined with the fact that I actually had a health situation related, you know, because of course you're going to have some people that are feeling something and it's mental coaching and stuff will fix it. There's some others like myself that have a situation that is going to require them mental coaching, but it's going to need the help of a professional psychiatrist to understand really what's happening, you know. So again, would I take it that I didn't have to go through that and maybe just take the normal mental coaching and not have to feel what I felt? Maybe, but at the end of the day, having lived through what I lived made me stronger. You know, now I feel what everyone else feels, but I've known already what it is to feel really dark, you know, and go through a very, very, very low place, and to know that you can come out of it and that you can be okay, and you know that life goes on and stuff. It's an experience that it always will be with me, you know, regardless of what the result is, or things are really going bad, or you know, like my results are not what I want, you know, the horse got hurt, all of the things that happen in life, they cannot be compared to what it feels to be in that dark hole, you know, because it's so lonely, and it doesn't need to be. I'm surrounded by love, you know, I'm lucky. I've been surrounded by love my entire life, but people don't understand that when you get to that point, you're alone, you know, you feel alone. Even if you're not, you feel alone, and it's good, and it's important for everyone to understand that it's all in your brain. That if you learn how to get out of it, and you learn how to understand how you got there and the different things that happen before you get there, you find a way not to ever go there again. Because you know when you're taking the first step the wrong direction, then you stop it. When you don't know, you take the first step, then you have to make a decision and you make the wrong decision, so now you're in the second step down. And then when you're wanting to get up and you make another bad decision, then you're in the third step. And then after the third step, you go down 100 so fast that you don't even know what happened. How did I get to this point from where I was 5 minutes ago? Why? Because you're not educated. We were not taught. We don't know. We don't have the skills to be able to understand what's happening in our brain and what's happening in our body. When you have those tools, you don't go there anymore. Mm-hmm. You might get through level 1, on a very horrendous situation that you really lost control, you get to 2. But you're definitely not going to get past that, because then all the tools that you've learned are going to kick in, and you're going to go back to 1, back to 0, and keep going with your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, that's very powerful to hear, and realize that is, I can just feel it, that is also made you who you are.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think, I mean, we're anyways, we are made out of the experiences we live, you know, and that makes us be who we are. And I've never, you know, and I know that some people feel victims about it, mental health and, you know, mental illness. I'm not a victim. by any means. I don't feel a victim at all. This is just my experience. I'm sharing my experience, but I don't feel bad about me. I don't want anyone to feel bad about me either, because I wouldn't feel bad about people that are going through it if they have access to get help. You know, I feel bad for the people that go through it and don't have the possibility or the financial possibility or whatever to get help, you know, to learn how to cope with it. But if you can, and you know now the information is out there, you know, and you suffer from any of those conditions or the one I did, you know, it's like when you have a cold, you know, you take cold medicine and you fix it. You know, the medicine for the brain is to learn how to control your emotions and to understand your brain, understand how it works, and you live an awesome life. So
you can experience all that. You can have been in this very dark place, and at the same time, you can choose not to be a victim.
Absolutely. You're not a victim. By no means you're a victim. You know, it's just your condition, you know, victimizing yourself and saying, okay, I'm not going to be able to get to where I want to because of this, for me is an excuse. And hey, listen, I thought about that excuse many times. Hey, this would be the easy way out. I'm not going to make it all the way to the top because I feel this and because I have this condition. And you know what? It's kind of believable. Yeah, you know, you were not made for it. You know, you tried, you had all these things, but, you know, you feel this stuff and these emotions and you go through this, and that just doesn't allow you to get all the way to the top. Sure, it would have been a good excuse. Definitely sellable. You know, like I could I could have told my loved ones, you know, and my kids someday, you know, I could have been, but I wasn't because. It would have sounded okay. I don't think they would have judged me for it. But it's just an excuse. It's an excuse. You know, everyone has different conditions. Everyone has different circumstances. Take what you were given, what you were dealt, work with it, and see how high you can get. You know, like it's not a competition about who becomes the best in the world or who is second in the world, Olympic champion, all the accolades. It's a matter of, did you get to the best version of yourself or you didn't? You know, did you give up because you had A, B, or C, or did you actually overcame A, B, and C and you became the best version of yourself? What does that mean in terms of results and what you win or you don't win? Who knows? That's out of my control. You know, I can't control what I win, but I can control the process that I make in order to get to win. You know, how I prepare myself, and that is actually my goal. And when people say, you know, who do you want to be? That's who I want to be. I want to be the best version of myself and the guy that didn't give up, that kept going and kept trying to improve until the day that he was too old to compete anymore.
Are you the best version of yourself right now?
I think I don't think I'm ever going to be the best version of myself, because if I think I am the best version of myself, that means that I'm done trying.
Right.
So I'm definitely not the best version of myself, but I am within range of the best version of myself. I am definitely within range of being able to achieve great success in competition with the version of myself right now. Mm-hmm. But I'm never going to be the best version of myself ever. I will retire without being the best version of myself.
Right.
Maybe I'll be the best version of myself when I don't compete anymore, because then I can say I'm the best version of myself.
I love that perspective. Yeah. Let's bring it back to the horses, because you mentioned that really was in the end what got you through. Did the horses help you to realize that, you know, you can make the excuses or choose not to be a victim? Were they somehow helpful in that process?
You know, when horses are in many ways a mirror, you know?
They're what?
A mirror, you know, like they show you who you are.
Yes.
And they show you how you're feeling. Mm-hmm. And horses have taught me a huge amount of compassion, you know, because, you know, they're working with me, they're trying their best, you know, and I'm trying my best, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work, you know, you get angry, you're frustrated. So horses definitely have shaped who I am. As far as being the victim or not, you know, I don't think that I ever really thought about that too much when I was riding, again, because for me, riding is the easy part. You know, for me, working with the horses every single day, and I ride every single day. I don't take days off. And I don't take days off not because I'm the hardest worker. I don't take days off because how can I take days off from something that I love? That wouldn't make any sense. Like, why would I'm gonna take a day off from eating or a day off from sleeping? Like, I don't take days off of eating. Well, only if I have to for the religious holidays, but it's not that I select to pay. And same with riding the horses. I love it. I just enjoy it so much to be with the horses, to wake up, to train the horses, to try to get the horses to be better. That for me is easy. That's my comfort place. That's my happy place. So that's how the horses helped me. Without realizing, I understood that what was important for me was not really the competition. That the competition was part of what we do and part of our life, but that wasn't the reason why I was doing it. And when I was able to take out some of that significance to the competition, I started to feel much better.
Yeah.
Because the pressure started to go away. Because if you're results oriented, I think you're going to struggle, to be successful. I am process oriented.
Yes.
I dedicate my time and my energy to make the best process that I can, and I accept the result as a consequence of that. So the moment I was able to understand that and really understand it, not just saying it, then everything was fun. Then things started to get better, then the results started to get better. And when the results were not good, I was more motivated to work on the process so that they would become good.
Yeah.
I don't get stuck on a bad result. I get stuck on why is the result, why am I getting that result? Like, what am I doing? Let's try to fix it here in the, I guess I call my lab. I call working in the farm with the horses my lab. So what's happening in my lab? Let me start tweaking things and see what if the outcome changes. I can be obsessive with that, but I'll never be obsessed with if I had one down or two down or I tripped and fell off or whatever. If the process was good, there are things that are going to happen in the competition ring that are completely out of our control. Completely, and I don't care what people say, they're just out of our control. You could have done everything perfect and you lose, and you could have done many mistakes and you win. So are you going to be happier because you won, although you made all these bad things, or are you going to be happier because when you lost, but you actually did a bunch of things that if you do them many times in a row, you're actually going to get success? Again, personal question. For me, it's simple. I much rather do things well and have a bad day than do things incorrectly and win. Because now how am I going to win again? How am I going to make that win sustainable?
So it sounds like you have learned to really shift your attention from being happy when you have good results to actually enjoying the process. As a result, a lot more focus on the process and not taking therefore the results personally anymore, and being able to just view them for what it is, feedback, and really straight away take that, learn from it, adjust, and keep learning. And then it's just about the long-term plan of consistency, doing things well, that will lead to results as a consequence of that.
Yeah, you're totally right. My results in the ring are not going to determine who I am. My value as a person, my value as a father, my value as a friend, my value as a human being will not be determined by how many classes I won or how many classes I didn't win.
Okay.
Wow. Which is obviously very hard when you think about it, because we spend so much time and effort, and this is so important for us. But I mean, you guys, the professionals in your field, have given us the tools to understand and put everything in perspective. If we decide not to use those tools and destroy our lives, that's our own personal decision. I made the decision not to go down that road. I've learned from what people and professionals in your field have written and worked on and studied, and I've learned from other athletes in different sports that have taken the good road and that had taken the bad road, and how their life ended up. And I made the conscious decision of going the direction that I'm going, and I'm at ease with it. That allows me to enjoy what I'm doing, to age in the sport and in this profession. But in the good way. You know, being able to enjoy, to have balance, to have a family, to raise my kids, to have fun, a good time with my wife, to be a husband, to be a father. And it sounds easy, but it is actually really hard. Like I'm working on it every single day. Because if not, the competition and the will to be the best I can and the number one and the winning this and winning that, it's going to take me. You know?
Yes.
It's going to get full control of my life, and I don't want to. I chose not to go that way.
Yes. Yeah. Some incredibly powerful lessons here. Value. How did you say it again? Who you are as a person is not determined by your wins or your losses. How you ride in the ring.
Absolutely.
And I think that is just so powerful to realize. And also something you mentioned, there is a difference between understanding things, knowing them, but also really applying it, working on it every day is what actually makes a difference, right?
Yeah.
What are the most important lessons you've learned from your horses apart from compassion?
You know, the meaning of partnership, you know, like just how important it is to take care of relationships. You know, the relationships that I have and I build with my horses, and especially in the way that I do the sport, I'm lucky to have the possibility to actually build those relationships and enjoy the sport, and then continue to have that relationship when they retire from the sport. So for me, you know, horses have taught me how important it is to work on your relationships with the people that you care. You know, just like I care about the horses, with the people I care for, I need to dedicate time. You know, I need to make sure I take care of those relationships. You know, that I spend time. You know, that I spend energy. That I learn. Horses have taught me that there are days where you should apply pressure, and then there are days where you have to just take a step back. You know, horses have taught me how valuable time is, both ways. You know, how some things you have to do now, they can't wait, and how some other things just happen better when you allow them to happen naturally. You know, just let days go by, let weeks go by, let months go by, let years go by. You know, I'm an impatient person by nature. You know, so horses have taught me that if you're just patient enough and you continue to do the right thing day in and day out, beautiful things come from it. Maybe you don't see it the first day, you don't see it the second day. A month has gone by, you still don't see it. But if you believe in what you're doing, sooner or later, out of nowhere, the day you least expect it, boom, and then you see the light at the end of the tunnel. And that, I think, it's an incredible way of life that the horses give us. You know, you wake up every day with the expectation, it's not in the word, with hoping that is the day that the great moment is going to come. You know, so you're excited. You wake up every day, you're excited. You know, like today might be the day that this horse I'm working with is going to turn the corner and it's going to become amazing. Today is the day that maybe this horse has been coming so good, is going to be just about ready to win a good Grand Prix. You know, and it never ends, because there are always new horses. There's always horses you're breeding or you're buying young, you're working on. So you're, at the end of the day, you're always excited. You know, you wake up every day and you're excited to go to the barn because something great might be happening. You know, so you're always looking forward to something. And that's, for someone with my personality, that is amazing, because then life always has a meaning. Then life always has something that is motivating me to keep going. And I would have not been able to get there without horses, you know?
You mentioned the horses are like a mirror, and they really reflect back of who you are being in that moment. Now, we don't get taught that in school. I wonder, like, how have you learned all these lessons from the horses? I mean, it's not just from riding them every day. Like, how has that come to you? Can you go a little bit more in detail? Like, maybe for people watching, they also want to learn from their horses, and they're with the horses every single day, riding 8, 9, 10 horses a day, but you know, they're maybe not learning those deeper lessons. How have you come to realize all that?
you know, I don't know where I read it. I'm sure you would know, but every weakness that you see in someone else is a weakness that you have yourself, in some degree.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember noticing, you know, at an early age, you know, when some riders used to be like a little bit too strong with their horses,
Mm-hmm.
or impatient. I didn't understand why, you know. And then when I caught myself being impatient, or a little bit stronger than I should have been with my horses, I realized that it went much deeper than that. I wasn't being strong or impatient with my horse. Before I got on the horse, I was already impatient and I was already strong. Some personal things were happening in my life, you know, whatever it was. And the more I looked into myself and I understood how my session with the horses would reflect a lot the way I was feeling, I understood that it was important for me to always have a balance in my life and not be too excited or too low, so that I could actually have the best sessions that I could with the horses. Then when I actually was able to master enough the control of my own emotions, I started to look at other riders and even people that I work with, I train, I work with, you know, like just other riders. And it was so evident, you know, like in some cases, incredibly evident, you know, like this rider rides totally the way he lives his life.
Mm-hmm.
Like that his way of riding the horses, of training the horses, of managing the horses, an identical copy of the way that they live their own personal life. And, you know, it's impressive that some people don't even realize it, you know, and that's when I always tell myself, you know, a horse is a mirror. You know, look at how people, when you go to a barn, you look at people riding their horses, or how they care for their horses, or how they manage their horses. Go to their house next,
Mm-hmm.
and you're going to see the similarities. Speak to their kids. The way that they treat the horses, many ways, is the way they treat their own kids. The way they treat their mare or their stallion, gelding, whatever, is probably the same way they treat their significant other.
Yeah.
When they're happy, they probably treat it the same way they treat the horse when they're happy. And when they're upset, look at how they treated the horse, and that's the same way that they treat their loved ones.
Mm.
So it's a mirror, and it teaches us so much.
Yeah.
You know,
They are the mirror. It's there. It's evident. But not everybody sees it. I think what is required, what I hear you say, to see it, is to actually pay attention and observe. And sometimes we're so in it. We're so focused on being competitive and winning and getting ahead and reaching our goals that we don't take a step back and actually observe it, to actually listen to our horse. It sounds like you've taken that space to actually reflect and be also brutally honest with yourself, because that too is required, to actually observe without, you know, being too attached or looking a certain way or being a certain way, to actually be honest with yourself, right? Yeah. Does that make sense?
yeah, absolutely. And look, many times as humans, we don't feel understood.
Mm.
You know, we're trying to say something, we're trying to get somewhere with a person in a relationship, and we're not getting through. Or that person, same way, they're with us and they feel that they're doing the right thing and that we are reacting the wrong way. It's no different with a horse.
Yeah.
You know, like you think you're telling the horse, well, you know you're telling the horse what you want to do, but have you ever thought for 1 second if they're actually understanding what you really want?
Yeah.
Like, are your tools the right tools? Are what you're doing the right thing? They might not just be reacting the wrong way. They might just be reacting the way they understand.
Yes.
You know, so if you start to think about that and you say, okay, maybe it's my communication what's wrong. It's a good horse. Mm-hmm. I'm a good rider, but we're not communicating right. You know, maybe the bit I'm using is not the right one. It doesn't allow me to tell the horse what I want, or the spurs, or, you know, whatever, anything you can think of. Maybe the atmosphere or the environment for this horse doesn't allow it to understand what I'm trying to say. And it's no different with humans.
Yeah.
You know, we feel misunderstood sometimes, not because the person in front of us is a bad person, it's just because they don't understand us.
Yeah.
And we don't understand them.
Yeah.
If we could actually try to find some things in common, sit down and open channels of communication that we haven't explored yet, maybe we might end up actually having a very good relationship.
Yes.
And horses also taught me that.
Yeah.
And then, the more time you spend with the horses, and if you're a student of life, because I don't only study horse, I study life. I like to learn from professionals like you. I like to learn from professionals in many different fields. I like to read. I like to understand the world that surrounds me. You start to see how everything at the end is connected, and how all these relationships are connected, which is no different that, with your dogs and, all this kind of stuff. But at the end, it's what makes life fun, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So it sounds like observing yourself and then also really studying life, reading the books and being curious and being able to look outside just the horse, to bring that all back to how can I not just better be understood, but how can I actually understand. And there's a really famous quote by Stephen Covey. He said, try not to be understood, but try to understand first.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you've realized that, but also really apply that of constantly being curious and asking, what does a horse actually need from me? Not, why is he not doing what I'm telling him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A horse is not a tool. Begin with. For me, it's not a tool whatsoever. It's not a philosophy of my sport, of what we do. The horse is my partner. And I also recognize that not every horse can be my partner. I recognize that not every horse is for me.
Right.
I don't get along with every horse.
Yeah.
I don't have a beautiful connection with every horse. I understand that. And I understand also that in life in general. What I do know is that when it is not for me, I'm not disrespectful to him or her horse, I simply just don't have that relationship anymore. Someone else can have the relationship.
What do you do then? Because actually this morning I was talking to a client and she got a horse in from Europe and it seemed fine there and now it's here and it's just very different, especially at the shows, to the point that it's dangerous. And, then the question comes up like, is this horse for me? Should I really make it work or should I just say, well, maybe this is not the right fit for me? I think this is something that really is important for many people watching, is like, where do you decide, I've tried everything, this is not the horse for me? When is it about going deeper and figuring it out with the horse, and when do you say, what, this is better for someone else?
Look, in my opinion, it just comes to the very basics. You cannot give up on a horse very quickly for many different reasons, especially if you already own it, right? If you already own the horse, you have to go to the basics and start from the beginning. Do I interact well on my horse on the ground? When we work a little bit on the lunge line or something, to interact well. Then you ride, and then when you ride, are we walking okay? Can we trot a little bit? Can we canter a little bit? Can we go out on a trail, right? Can we try to understand each other? I don't think that you can just simply say, this is the wrong fit after 2 seconds. Sure, we have to do that nowadays because we cannot have every horse. We only have a limited amount of time, so we have to get very particular about what we work with and what we don't work with. But that we can do when we don't own the horse. When you already own the horse, you have to put the time to get to know it, to really know if it fits you or it doesn't fit you. And many horses at the end perhaps are not going to fit you, and it also depends what you're trying to accomplish. In my personal level, when I see a horse doesn't fit me, it's not because it doesn't fit me at all. I'll still love a horse. I'll still be able to ride probably any horse and have a relationship with any horse. But I like I tell myself, the group of horses I work with, our goals are pretty ambitious. We're trying to go and compete with the best in the world and to be successful against the best in the world. So we're talking about a very particular match. Something that it's got to be really strong and it's got to be a great connection. It's like I have a lot of friends that are girls that we have a nice relationship. Not all of them would have been my wife. So it depends what do you want the horse for.
True.
Like if what you want is a wife, well, you better make sure that you guys have a lot of things in common. You see life very much the same way. Where you're going together. If you just want a friend, you might have differences and still be a good friend, you know. So the same with horses. In my particular situation, I work with 7 or 8 horses, never more than that. And if I'm going to keep a horse be one of those 8 horses, we have to have a relationship that I feel is strong enough that we can build on it and be successful for a decade together, you know, to go around the world and be competitive. And that's not going to happen if I don't have a strong relationship under the program that we do, you know, so that's how I see it. But to anyone that is watching or anyone that has a horse, you know, don't get so easily discouraged, you know. Many times it's just a little bit of patience and opening the channels of communication, and have compassion, you know, understand that the horses have their own story. You have your story, but the horse also has his story. The horse also has gone through their experiences, good and bad. You know, try to understand what's behind the behavior that they're showing you right now. You know, horses are not like us. You know, most horses actually mean well. You know, like they don't become bad, you know, and they want to be bad. You know, I'm not saying there's not some horses that are bad, and there are, but the majority of the time is us, you know, and we just have to figure out what is it that they want, what is it that they need, and also what are we expecting from them. You know, like some people have expectations of their horses that are just totally realistic. It's not about a horse. It's a great horse, just not for what you wanted. That doesn't make it a bad horse. Because it doesn't want to be a 1.60 meter Olympic champion, it doesn't mean it's a bad horse. Maybe it's the most incredible 1.10 meter horse that could make someone so happy. So you must be able to understand and be humble about what's in front of you. Maybe the horse that you have or that it's in front of you is not a great horse for you. Doesn't mean it's not a great horse for someone else. Why are you going to destroy the horse and yourself in the process of making the horse something he cannot be? Maybe he just needed a different job, and that was it. We cannot forget about riders and horse people, that the horses don't know how much they're worth. They don't know how much we paid for them. They don't understand any of that. They're just horses. They want to be fed, they want to be respected, they want to be loved. If we have expectations that are let's say the right ones in regards to what the horse can do or what the horse wants to do, we have a much healthier relationship with all the horses and with the sport. You know, we gotta be able to recognize that we lost. We gotta be able to recognize that perhaps the investment didn't work out the way we wanted. And yes, it's expensive, you know, and yes, we dedicate so much time and effort and resources. But again, the horse doesn't know that. So why do they have to suffer or to feel the repercussions of what's happening to us? The moment you understand the sport like that and you keep the right perspective, you enjoy it so much more. Because you understand what's happening. You're gonna lose, you're gonna win. Some horses are going to be better in the ring than others. You know, some are gonna exceed your expectations, some are not gonna even be close to reaching the expectation you had. But at the end of the day, if you always try to finish each relationship with each of your horses the right way, you're gonna be a happier person.
How do you finish a relationship, or how do you build a relationship in a powerful way? Is that just in the tack, in the work, or do you build a relationship also outside of that?
I personally, in everything. You know, in everything. How the horses eat, how the horses sleep. I love the horses to be outside. I love the horses to be in the paddock. I love the horses to have a relationship with other horses. I love to go with my horses on trails. I like to take them to the ocean. I like to have a relationship that pretty much can go through fire. The horses that I ride and that I compete with, I honestly feel I could go through fire. Like they would go through fire with me. We would do it for each other because we know that each other that much, and we've done so much together. We've had so many experiences, you know, we just know each other that deeply. That gives me confidence. That's a very personal thing. Every rider has a different way. That's my way with the horses. And how do I finish a relationship well with a horse? Well, if the horse is not being able to do what I need him to do or do the competition at the level that I want to, my question is, what would be the best for this horse? Is he better for another rider at a different level? Is he maybe have already given me everything and given everything in the sport? Now what he needs is to be properly retired and loved for the remaining of his life. You know, whatever the answer is, that's what I do. And believe me, money does not come into play when I'm making those decisions. I have had to lose many ways, but if a horse was good to me, I was good to them, and it comes the time where we cannot really perform anymore. We need to open the space for another horse that needs to come into the string. One of my most important goals is to make sure that horse ends up in the right situation, in the good situation. And that's not going to be guided by the fact of who's the biggest buyer, who's the one that's going to give me the most. And why, when people say, okay, yeah, that's kind of dumb, like you need the resources, you need the money, and sure I do, we all do, and this is expensive. But I think that's paying it forward. If you make sure you care for the horses, and every horse goes to your barn, you try to get them to be in the best situation at the end, life will give back to you. Life will give you more opportunities. Doing what's right is not always the easiest thing. Most of the time it's actually the hardest thing. But it's just the absolutely most gratifying one. Like regardless of what the result is at the end, and if you made more money or you made less money, or the deal was better, the deal was worse, if you did what was right, at the very end, that's going to give you the biggest gratification.
Is that being the truest version of yourself?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's part of being the truest and best version of myself.
I would say so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's rare to hear in this sport, where ambition sometimes can just really take over, and we can justify doing things that are not in the best interest of the horse, because we want those results, or we want that money, or we feel like we really have to get ahead and there's no other way. Again, it's something you tell yourself, but it's being very honest. And at the same time, it requires a lot of trust and faith to say, okay, if I do the right thing, life will give back. And there is no guarantee there.
Yeah.
All we have is a choice to trust. That's what I'm hearing you say, is that you choose that trust. And it is my belief that riders who have cultivated that trust and who dare to step into that trust every time are the ones who actually succeed the most, because trusting is a skill. And when the pressure is on, part of our brain wants to do anything but trust. It wants to control
everything. Yeah.
It wants to take over, it wants to freeze or run away. Definitely doesn't want to trust. And so learning that skill and hearing you say that it requires trust, I think it's so important, because trusting is not just something, trusting your horse in the moment when you go into the ring. It's something you can also live by, even your business decisions. Saying like, business-wise, it would make more sense to sell this horse. Wow, but what is in the interest of the horse is doing this, and trusting that is the right thing, and that will come back to you. Yeah, that's very powerful.
You're absolutely right. And look, it's not easy. And it doesn't mean that if you in the past, or you still continue to make perhaps the decision coming from the wrong place, you're a bad person. Not at all. Mm-hmm. Not at all. I've made them myself. Mm-hmm. I've made wrong decisions. I've made decisions that didn't come from the place they needed to come.
Yeah.
Because I was blinded by the need of getting this done or that done, or because I was ambitious about getting this result or that result. It happens to everyone. What differs the greatest, or the people with the most wisdom to the ones that don't have it, is to recognize it and change it.
Yes.
And don't do it, and be always conscious of those difficult decisions and where is the decision coming from. And there's no amount of money or success in the ring that is ever going to give you that peace that you get within yourself, like when you do what's right. Because at the end, and again comes faith. At the end, it's just everything is so intertwined. Because with what you do and faith, I'm a man of faith. And I believe that when our time comes to an end, what we're going to take with us is those right decisions we made, and the quality of people that we were, The rest is going to stay here. So what's more important for you? Personal decision. I know what it is for me.
That's it. Like you said, it's not right or wrong. It's
Yeah.
just a choice you make.
Yeah.
And what I hear in you very much is that you actually really think about it and you realize you have that choice.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, they speed through life so quickly that they don't realize they have that choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Last question. Is there any advice you would give young riders that want to be as mentally strong as you are?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely learn. You know, if you're practicing and you're spending time into trying to become the best version of yourself, well, you gotta understand that being mentally strong and being emotionally strong and being physically strong and healthy, it's equally important. You know, it is a pillar that is definitely important. I think that is more than proven how significant the impact of training your brain can be. And I would encourage all of the younger and older generations and whoever has anything to take from this chat to never stop learning about yourself and about your brain, and you know, take care of your body and take care of your brain.
Great advice. Couldn't agree more. Daniel, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I had the best time.
Thank
Learned
you.
so much from you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for sitting down with me.